be talking about relationship advice. And
Yes.
this conversation partially came about because the other day I heard someone giving a talk, and they were talking about various different things, and I remembered thinking, wow, this advice is pretty good if you're in a healthy relationship. And I remembered
Yeah.
thinking to myself, I wish that they put a caveat on what they're saying, because
Yeah.
some of what they're saying, if I were in an unhealthy relationship or a toxic relationship, an abusive relationship, it wouldn't, it would have been very detrimental, as it were.
Agreed.
And I wanted to talk to you more about that, having been in the unfortunate position of being in a toxic relationship and having had to go through a divorce. I feel like you're probably more versed than I am. But I was sitting there thinking, oh, this is good advice, but it isn't good advice for everybody.
Yes. And I think that's such a great point. And I know you and I were talking about it earlier, just like healthy versus unhealthy, good versus bad, and shift. Like
Yes.
I have a gluten allergy and Rebecca does not. Rebecca can eat all the delicious things that I don't get to eat. And so it's not unhealthy for her, but it is unhealthy for me. And like realizing those things, and I take that and I apply that same thing to relationship stuff. And you are exactly right. There is wonderful, healthy advice that's assuming that the two people in it are healthy people.
Right.
And I definitely had many experiences where the advice that I heard from whether it was the pulpit or a teaching or whatever the source was, or individuals like my friends,
Mm-hmm.
and it was great advice. Like it was healthy advice, but it did not allow for you being in a toxic relationship. It did not allow for that. And because they didn't say anything, because they didn't say, hey,
Mm-hmm.
this is what this relationship is like looking for. Like there are gonna be problems in healthy relationships. There will always,
Right.
anytime, like how much do I struggle with my relationship with my own self, let alone another person? And so I think part of it is encouraging people who are sharing advice to add those caveats sometimes. Just be like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
just to note, this is assuming that you are two healthy people who are committed to that.
Right.
You're committed to the relationship, and you're more than committed to the relationship. You're committed to the person that's in the relationship. Because I actually heard that advice. I heard that like you have to be, sometimes you have to be more committed to the marriage itself than the situation. Like you're having a bad day at work. You're still committed to showing up the next day and doing the work. Um, so I would think about that in my marriage, but that didn't work well because I wasn't with someone who needed to be an equal partner in a
Right.
marriage. You're looking for that we're both putting in this effort together for it to be something great. And when you and I were chatting about it earlier, we talked briefly about, well, how do you recognize that?
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you're in the unhealthy place, it can be really hard because, like, for me, I would share one example of what was happening. And to all my friends, um, it just sounded like the problems they were dealing
So
with
you
because
would share one example of a challenge that you were having in your relationship,
yes,
but it was only one
yep,
example. You weren't talking about all the other things happening as well.
yeah.
And that one example was like, oh yeah, I deal with that too.
Yes, exactly. So people would relate to it and they would give me advice for that specific thing. And of course, I didn't realize that I wasn't giving them a full picture and they didn't
Okay.
realize it. And we were young and blissfully blind to some of those things. But now we're aware. So now we can help other people be aware. And part of that is like looking at, is there respect in my relationship?
Mm-hmm.
Am I being respected? Am I respecting them? And oftentimes there's a lot of focus on when you are looking at yourself and trying to make everything better, you'll look, well, am I respecting them enough? Or am I loving them enough? Or am I doing this? But are you also receiving that same thing
And
back?
are
Like, are you
you
seeing?
asking whether or not they're doing that? Which I think is
Yeah,
scary. If you think that you're in an
very
unhealthy
scary.
relationship and you're not sure, that's a hard question to ask. Because if you
Agreed.
suddenly realize, oh, they don't respect me and
Yeah,
they're not showing
yeah.
that, it's like, well, wait a minute, where am I?
Yeah.
Hard
So
question.
So the things that I look at now when I'm detecting, like, is this relationship healthy? Is I look for respect. Like, do they respect me? Do they value me as a person, as a human? Are
Mhm.
they putting me, do I find myself being put down? Do I find myself being the butt of jokes? Do I find myself feeling a little bit less than? And integrity, do their words and actions match? So if they said they were going to do this thing, did they do it? If I see those consistencies across the board, then when they say, "Hey, I'm working on this thing, and you're important to me," I know that they mean it because everything else that they're doing in their life, they're doing it and saying it, like both ways. It's not just one or the other. And then, they've got my back. It's somebody I can trust. Like, and I think sometimes we feel obligated to trust people, but learning to recognize, like, is this a person who's safe to trust, who actually does have my back, who actually does care what happens to me? Um, and then the other thing I would say that I noticed was kind of like I said, I would share one example. There was a certain amount of fear of if I share more,
Mhm.
that how are people going to react to me? And kind of, and I don't think I even realized it at the time, but I would hide things. Like, I would just be like, oh, don't tell anybody about that. And I would actually find myself being concerned that if I told you or and other friends, that if I told you what was happening, it would be like, oh, th- it would freak you out and that you guys would freak out. And then I was like, oh, you can't do that because that'll be too much for them to deal with.
Mhm.
So those small things that I were kind of running on like more of a subconscious level, that now I'm like, oh, if you notice that you're kind of hiding and you're afraid to tell everything and you're afraid to share more examples and some of the other examples that might be drastically different than the one you're focusing on right now, if you find yourself in that, there's a good chance that that is not particularly healthy and that healthy advice is probably not going to work for your situation. I think that's the hard part.
Right.
Yeah.
It was interesting because those are all great examples. And I love hearing it kind of laid out like, here's three things that you can look for in
Yeah.
your relationship. Is there's a healthy relationship? And use it as a gauge. I know those things now. I would say in the past, I didn't know those. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's very
Same.
interesting to have a lens of, oh, would I know it now? So I'm
Right.
listening to that person give a talk and I'm like, that's all really great. But that's great because I'm in a relationship with someone who cares for me. They respect me. Their actions match their
Yeah.
words. They would go to bat for me. Like all these different things, all the aspects of who they
Right.
are make them a healthy person. And they're working on themselves. Like we have shared language because they also
That's a good
get help.
point.
They're
That's
talking
great.
to someone to process their own emotions, to understand what's going on for them internally, and then bringing all of themselves to the table. But part of what all of that to say, part of what crossed my mind was, if you didn't know, if
Mm-hmm.
you're coming across something like a conversation with Rachel and I, or you're coming across content from other people, like, what are some of the questions that you would suggest people ask themselves to even begin to go, well, hang on a minute, like, how do I even know if it's a healthy or unhealthy
Mm-hmm.
relationship?
Yeah. And that's part of what I was getting at, because I think some of the stuff is so nuanced, it can be really, really hard. Especially if you're somebody who wants to work on yourself and wants to improve yourself, you'll take the advice and you apply it to yourself and you try and do it. But if it's not working, so if you find that you're applying advice from other people, but it doesn't seem to work,
Okay.
I would take a deeper look and be like, why would this not be working for me?
Okay.
Like, why would this not be working for me?
And one
What
thing
is
that
different?
you could be finding in that instance, I'm guessing, is that you're applying it and doing the work, but you suddenly realize, oh, wait a minute, my partner's not.
Yeah, yeah. Is your partner matching your energy? And that can
Mhm.
be really hard to identify sometimes because, especially if you're so fixated on trying to accomplish those things, I realized I was doing all this effort and I thought we together were doing something. We weren't,
Right.
I was, and they were just doing the bare minimum. So learning, and it's just letting yourself begin to start to be aware of those
Mhm.
things and coming back to, do I feel respected? Do I notice that their words and actions match? That is probably my number one thing almost all the time that I would say in any relationship is just notice, do their words and actions match? Because if they don't, then maybe stop listening to the words so much and start listening to the actions,
Okay.
and see what's that being communicated. But
What are
start
they
to watch
actually
that.
doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's an easy one to identify. Like they said they would do the dishes, they did the dishes. They said they
Right.
would blah blah blah, they did it. They and we all have times where we'll say, "Oh, I'm going to do this," and then I don't do it. Like
Well,
we
and
absolutely do.
those
But the
are
majority of the
simple.
time.
Those are simple everyday examples. I love that. But
Yeah.
I love that you're saying words and actions match. Again, I'm in a healthy relationship.
Yep.
And one of the things as I was getting to know my partner that I began to realize is we would have conversations about something
Mm-hmm.
and they wouldn't say anything else about this thing that we talked about. And I would
Right.
find out months later that they had taken action. And I was like,
Right.
wait, what? You went
You did
and you
this.
did that?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, like they weren't hiding it from me. They just didn't think to tell me because they were like, oh, we had this great conversation
They
and I went and
integrated
took
it.
action
They
on
took
it.
it in and they were like,
Yeah.
"Yes, okay. I'm going
Yes.
to do that."
And so
That's
I
great.
remember having moments of being like, oh,
Oh,
like that's so nice. They listened to everything I said and they went and took action.
yes.
And so the positive side of that is you seeing people and realizing, oh, wait a minute, like they are taking action. I'm
Yeah.
like, wow, that feels so good. I felt
Mm-hmm.
respected. I didn't
Yeah.
just feel respected. I was like, oh, they really heard me. They were listening. And so their actions did match their words and did match the
Yes.
fact that, oh, they're really listening.
Yeah.
Versus like you said, you know, the simple ones in just daily life.
Yeah.
Well, they'll do the dishes, but they never do the dishes. We're not talking about the one-off where, hey, I was really tired. I'm sorry I didn't do the
Yeah.
dishes.
Yeah.
We're talking
Exactly.
about
Which
that
always there's
consistent,
always
like,
that, right? That
you
exists.
telling me you're going to help me, you're not showing up and
Yeah.
helping me.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
well, hopefully that helps. People just begin to recognize that and just be more aware. And also, I would say give yourself grace when, if you find, maybe I am in an unhealthy relationship, or you're trying all this advice and it's not working, it's probably because some part of it's not very healthy. Give yourself grace to not beat yourself up that you're trying it and you're doing it. And I think often felt like a failure because I was trying all the things and it wasn't working. It didn't like enter my thoughts at the
Right.
time.
It felt like it was you
It was
versus,
me
right.
as opposed to, oh, wait a second. That's because there are dynamics in this relationship where this healthy, wonderful advice just won't fit.
Right.
It just won't work because that person, the person I'm with, has other work that they need to go do on themselves. And until they do that, I can do all this stuff till I'm blue in the face, and it's not going to yield the results I hope it will. So,
Right.
Anyway, yes.
Well, I am going to give an absolutely shameless plug. So Rachel wrote a book called Blueprints for Divorce. And
Ooh.
it is, so I am not divorced. I'm in a healthy relationship. But in reading this book, it helped me to realize that there were certain things about relationships I hadn't processed, I hadn't thought about. It's also been a really great book for me. If I have friends in that position, unfortunately dealing with that, asking that question, what is healthy? What is not healthy?
Yeah.
I highly recommend this because Rachel explores what is healthy and what is not healthy. You know, and how do you figure that out? There's a chapter in here about, you know, just what does healthy look like? How do you build yourself up in the midst of not being in a healthy relationship? Because we make better decisions when we've actually worked on ourselves and we've built ourselves up. What does it look like to try and make a healthy or an unhealthy, whatever decision you make? What does it look like to make that decision? Where are you coming from? So I want to mention that. And for those of you who see this or watching now and are asking that question, have things falling off their walls behind them. If the house is falling down around your ears, maybe this could help. Probably not.
It might feel I would say, yeah, your life might feel like it's falling down around you. And that's part of why I wrote it, was for those people who it's like, I don't understand. And you start to think about something that's scary and you don't want to think about. And yet it might be the very light and life redeeming experience that you're longing for, even though none of us want to go through it. But you might be in a place where it's like, this is the healthiest thing for me.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And I remember having that conversation with you about the fact that as much as it hurt and as painful as it was, that was the act of redemption.
Yeah.
The act of redemption was saying, hey, this isn't healthy and I'm not going to stay healthy anymore for myself, for my spouse who's not healthy,
It was hard.
for my children.
Yeah. Yeah, but it was also, it absolutely was the healthiest thing for everybody involved, for sure. No doubt.
Yeah. So healthy versus unhealthy, it's a hard decision to make. Sometimes it can be hard to even identify. There's a lot of great advice out there, But when we're looking at our own lives, evaluating like, is this healthy advice for me right now where I'm at?
Yeah.
And Rachel, do you want to hit those 3 pointers again, the 3 things that you use to identify, like, am
Yeah.
I in a healthy relationship as a starter?
Yeah, and I might go more than 3, but just so respect. Is the respect there? Do they respect and value me? The integrity. Do their words and actions match? Can I trust them? Have they got my back? And then I would also say checking myself, like, am I hiding things?
Mm-hmm.
Am I kind of like afraid to say what's happening in my relationship to other people? Am I trying all this advice seemingly to no avail? I would say if I'm noticing those things, then I'm like, oh, there's probably some stuff there that's not very healthy. And the healthy advice isn't going to be a very good fit for those scenarios, unfortunately. So,
Thank you
yeah.
for sharing this.
Yes, absolutely. I'm so glad we chatted today. I love our conversations.
Yep, me too. Guys, thank you for joining us for Real Conversations,
Thank you.
For Living Fully Present. And we just invite you, what are your thoughts? What has this made you think about? What has this made you question? What does it bring up?
Spark? Yeah, we love knowing what people are thinking, and we love hearing about the things that you guys are thinking about. And if there's stuff that you want us to talk about, tell us your favorite topics, because we love talking about cool things and diving deep.
Right.
Alrighty. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.